The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Hi children, happy morning. I am happy to inform you that most of you have completed your notes related to chapter 1, 2 and 3. Still few of the students have not submitted their notes related to these chapters. My dear children, be on track. As you know that pandemic 19 is not allowing us to meet together, to interact together. So the responsibility for you is more as you are sitting at home. So my dear children, be on track. Then only in the examination you will be able to do very nicely and you can score good marks. Dear children, in the last class we were discussing the first part of lesson 4, that is biotechnology principles and processes, where we understood about what is biotechnology, what is the difference between old biotechnology and modern biotechnology. Then we came to know that there are two core principles that enable the birth of modern biotechnology, and they are genetic engineering and fermentation technology. And genetic engineering includes creation of recombinant DNA, gene cloning, gene transfer. Related to creation of recombinant DNA, we came to know that Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer constructed the first recombinant DNA, and the steps for the construction of recombinant DNA we understood. And later on we came to know that there are 3 basic steps in genetically modifying an organism, and they are identification of DNA with desirable genes, introduction of the identified DNA into the host, maintenance of introduced DNA in the host, and transfer of the DNA to its progenies. Next topic was related to the use of gene cloning, where we came to know about a new term, that is origin of replication, which is responsible for initiating replication. Then the last part of genetic engineering, that is gene transfer, and it is a process of transfer of desired gene from one organism to another. That we came to know, we understood about it. Next topic we discussed is tools of recombinant DNA technology, where we understood about restriction enzymes, polymerase enzymes and ligases. And in the case of restriction enzyme, we came to know that it is enzyme which cut the DNA at a specific point into fragments, and the discovery of restriction enzyme, it was discovered from bacterium E. coli. And next we came to know that this enzyme, it is having, or it consists of 2 parts. One is restriction enzyme, the other one is modern enzyme, modification enzyme. The restriction enzymes consist of 2 parts, that is restriction enzyme as well as modification enzyme. And later on we came to know that restriction enzymes belongs to a larger class, and that is called nucleases. And nucleases, they are of 2 types, exonuclease and endonuclease. And in the case of endonuclease, we came to know that restriction enzymes are the examples of endonuclease. Later on, how to name the restriction enzyme we understood by taking the example of EcoR1, which is from E. coli, isn't it? E. coli RY13. Later on, we understood the action of restriction endonuclease, where we came to know another technical term, that is palindrome. And this palindrome, it is a group of letters that read the same forwards and backwards, and palindromic sequence is present there in the DNA, where it reads same on 2 strands, and like this we understood about palindromic sequences. And later on we came to know about the style of DNA cleavage, how the restriction endonuclease is making a cut in the DNA, that we came to know. And by seeing the video, I think you would have understood more clearly about the style of DNA cleavage. And later on we studied a process called gel electrophoresis for separation and isolation of DNA, and there are steps for in the gel electrophoresis for separating and isolating the DNA fragments. And the last, we understood that through that process purified DNA fragments are used for constructing recombinant DNA. So this is the recap of the previous class, my dear children. And now we are going to understand the next topic in this chapter, and that is related to cloning vectors. Vectors are vehicles which are used to transfer gene from one cell to another. So what are vectors? These are vehicles and they are used to transfer gene from one cell to another. And the commonly used cloning vectors are plasmid vectors, bacteriophages, cosmid vectors, and transposons. Transposons, they are also known as jumping genes. So these are the commonly used cloning vectors. Now the first one is plasmid vectors. And what are plasmid? Plasmid is a circular, double-stranded, self-replicating extra chromosomal circular DNA. So plasmid are the DNA present in the bacterial cell other than a normal DNA in the bacterial cell. So plasmid, what are they? It is a circular and double-stranded and self-replicating extra chromosomal circular DNA present in the bacterial cell. Now the naturally occurring plasmid in E. coli. E. coli is a bacterium. We can see naturally occurring plasmid, and that is the COL-E1. It is COL-E1, which is a naturally occurring plasmid seen in bacterium E. coli. And in Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Agrobacterium tumefaciens is another bacteria in which we can see naturally occurring plasmid, that is Ti plasmid. I think you would have understood the naturally occurring plasmid present in E. coli as well as in the case of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Now the important artificially reconstructed plasmid from the natural plasmid of E. coli are PBr322 and PUC18. So these are the two examples, isn't it? So from the naturally occurring plasmid, artificially reconstructed plasmid can be made, and the example for artificially reconstructed plasmids are PBr322, PUC18, etc. So here you can see, my dear children, the two vectors or two plasmids. One is PBr322, it is having an origin of replication here, that is ORI, and here same way in PUC you can see here the ORI. Okay, now you can see plasmids are naturally occurring extrachromosomal DNA molecules. Plasmids are circular double-stranded DNA. Now, plasmids are the means by which antibiotic resistance is often transferred from one bacteria to another. So, what are plasmids? Plasmids are the vectors, or they are the vehicles through which the antibiotic resistant genes are transmitted, or they are transferred from one cell to another cell of bacteria. And plasmids, for doing this process, plasmids can be cleaved means they can be broken by restriction enzymes, leaving sticky or blunt ends. So, when to transfer a antibiotic resistance gene into a bacterium, for that process first the plasmid will be cleaved, it will be broken, and a piece of DNA is being taken out, and instead of that foreign desirable DNA which contain desirable gene will be joined in that area, and later on what will happen, this plasmid are used there to transfer that desirable gene or gene of interest from one cell to another cell. So, here you can see artificial plasmids can be constructed by linking new DNA fragments to the sticky ends of plasmid. You know what is sticky end as well as blunt end, isn't it? So, in the sticky end, what is being linked there? New DNA fragment, that is a foreign DNA fragment will be linked there, so that this naturally occurring plasmid will be made as artificially reconstructed plasmid for the transfer of gene of interest from one cell to the another cell of the bacteria. Now we are going to see about PBr322. It is an artificially reconstructed plasmid vector from the plasmid of E. coli, which is also known as col E1. So, here you can see PBr322 is an artificial plasmid vector, and it is being constructed, or we can say it is being reconstructed from the plasmid of E. coli. Now, during the reconstruction of PBr322, 3 genes are added to col E1. This is a naturally occurring plasmid, and in this 3 genes are added so that the artificial plasmid vector can be produced. Example, PBr322. So, in PBr322, 3 genes are there. They are ORI, it is the gene for starting replication. Number 2, TETR is the gene for tetracycline resistance, and number 3, AMPR, it is the gene for ampicillin resistance. So, ORI, TETR and AMPR, these are the 3 genes which are added to the naturally occurring plasmid of E. coli for the reconstruction of artificial plasmid vector. And in the case of PBR, it is the first artificial cloning vector developed by Bolivar and Rodriguez from E. coli. So, as I told you, from E. coli, PBr322 was constructed, and it is the first artificial cloning vector, and the scientists are Bolivar and Rodriguez, and from their name, the name PBr322 came into existence. That is, P stands for plasmid, B stands for Bolivar, and R stands for Rodriguez. I think, my dear children, you would have understood about PBr322. Now, for understanding more clearly, you can watch a video related to this vector. So, my dear children, now you can watch the video.
Hi friends, in this tutorial we are going to discuss about PBr322, the first widely used vector in genetic engineering. The name PBr322 was named after its discoverer Bolivar and Rodriguez in 1970s. and this is the plasmid PPR322, and we will be discussing in all the elements of this particular vector in detail. And this is the first widely used genetically engineered plasmid in recombinant DNA technology. And these are the PPR322 elements. There is an origin of replication, that is from E. coli origin. Then unique restriction sites. There are at least 12 unique restriction sites in PPR322. Examples like PAMH1, SAL1, PV1, PST1, etc. And the third thing is the selectable marker. There are two selectable markers, an ampicillin resistance region and also a tetracycline resistance region containing the genes that will impart resistance towards these antibiotics. And this vector is 4361 base pairs in length and is the most widely used vector in genetic engineering. First of all, ORI. ORI is derived from E. coli plasmid, E. coli ORI. The function of ORI is whenever we have introduced this vector into a suitable host, ORI is a sequence that is essentially required for replication of this particular vector inside the host. Secondly, restriction enzymes. There are at least 12 unique restriction sites in PPR322, PAMH1, SAL1, PST1, PV1, and all within the selectable marker regions. And this is a function, so in order to integrate our desired gene into the vector, actually we are using these restriction sites. We are actually making a cut in this PAMH1 site or any of the restriction site and introducing our gene of interest in that site. So the function of these restriction enzymes, in order to integrate our gene of interest into the vector, we need to make cleave in the DNA segments, and this is by restriction enzymes or restriction sites. The third major element, that is the selectable marker. There are two marker regions. This is the ampicillin resistance region, that is imparting resistance, that contain genes that provide resistance to the host while growing in an ampicillin medium, and this is the tetracycline resistance, where also this will provide resistance against tetracycline in a tetracycline containing medium, and this will help us in selecting transformed colonies from the rest. Once the transformation experiment is complete, we'll be getting three types of colonies. Majority non-transformed without a vector, and secondly transformed with unaltered vector. Vector has introduced into the bacterium but without our gene of interest. Third, transformed with recombinant vector, the colonies that we need to select. And this is a tedious process, as the number of colonies that with transformed recombinant vector will be always very low, so we need to isolate these from the rest. So these are the three types of colonies. Here comes the use of selectable markers. So this is a master plate containing all the colonies. From this we need to find out which of the colony contains our gene of interest. So non-transformed cannot grow on ampicillin or tetracycline medium, as that vector is not introduced into the bacterium doesn't have the innate capability to grow in ampicillin or tetracycline contained medium. So it cannot grow in a medium where there is tetracycline or ampicillin. Then the second type, transformed with non-recombinant vector. Here this particular vector has both ampicillin and tetracycline resistance genes, so that this particular vector containing colonies can grow on both ampicillin and tetracycline containing medium. The third one that we need to select, that is the transformed with recombinant vector. In the case of transformed with recombinant vector, it can grow in ampicillin medium based on where we inserted a gene. In this case, in the example, we have inserted our gene of interest in tetracycline resistance region using PAMH1 as a restriction site. So once the gene has integrated into that site, that gene is no more functioning. This particular bacterium with our desired gene cannot grow in tetracycline medium. It can grow only in ampicillin medium. The inactivity of a gene once our desired gene is inserted, the process is called as insertional inactivation. So thus our transformed recombinants can grow only in ampicillin medium and cannot grow in tetracycline medium due to insertional inactivation. So that selectable markers are actually helping us in picking out our desired colonies with our gene of interest.
Now we will be moving on to the next part, that is features of a cloning vectors. To act as vector, DNA should bear features as number 1, origin of replication, selectable marker, cloning site, vectors for cloning genes. So these are the 4 features which the DNA should bear, then only we can say that this DNA will be acting as a vector. Now the first one is origin of replication. We already know about it, that it initiates the replication, and if any piece of DNA when linked to ORI can be made to replicate within the host cell. So ORI is the site in the DNA where if any alien DNA or foreign DNA is linked to it, what will happen? That area, as the name indicates, origin of replication, there what will happen? Replication will begin within the host cell. Next one is related to selectable marker. The gene which helps in identifying and eliminating non-transformants and selectively permitting the growth of the transformants is called selectable marker. So what are selectable markers? They are the genes, and what they are doing? They are helping to identify the recombinants or transformants by eliminating the non-recombinants or non-transformants. Understood? And here a bacterium which is modified through a foreign gene is called transformants. A bacterium is modified there by foreign gene, and when a bacterium will be having an insert, surely that bacterium is known as a transformant. Okay, and the process through which a foreign gene is introduced into a host bacterium is called transformation. So what is transformation? It is a process through which a foreign gene is introduced into the bacterium, and that process is called transformation, and through transformation transformants are obtained. And what are transformants? Transformants are the bacterium which is having a foreign gene in it, or we can say a bacterium is modified through a foreign gene. So that is called transformant. Now you can see here in the normal E. coli cells, they do not carry resistance against any of these antibiotics. Just now we understood that there are 2 antibiotic resistant genes present in the artificially reconstructed vectors. They are TETR, that is tetracycline resistance gene, and AMPR, that is an ampicillin resistance gene. These 2 antibiotic resistant genes are not present in the naturally occurring plasmid of E. coli. Now next one, the useful selectable markers for E. coli in PBR 322 are the following. Number 1, I told you just now, TETR, and number 2, AMPR. TETR is the gene for resistance against an antibiotic, tetracycline, and AMPR, it is a gene for resistance against antibiotic, ampicillin. So these 2 are the antibiotic resistance genes which are present in artificially reconstructed vector, that is PBR 322, and these 2 antibiotic resistant genes are absent in the normal plasmid of E. coli. I think you would have understood, my dear children, about the antibiotic resistant genes. Now the third one is cloning site. In the DNA, origin of replication should be there, selectable markers it should be there, and the third one, a cloning site, should be there in the DNA. Then only we can say that DNA can act as a vector. So number 3 is cloning site. The recognition site where aligned DNA can be inserted is called cloning site. That means cloning site are the recognition site where foreign DNA can be inserted. Okay. Now here you can see the vector must have few, that is preferably single cloning sites, because occurrence of more than one cloning site will cause DNA fragmentation. So what it is said, my dear children, a vector, it should have only one cloning site, because if it is having more cloning site, what will happen? It will cause DNA fragmentation. That is, breaking of DNA will be taking place and the process will become more tedious and complex. So this part is very important. You have to understand it very nicely. Now the next one is the ligation of aligned DNA is carried out at a restriction site present in one of the two antibiotic resistance gene. So in the DNA there are sites. In one site TETR will be present there, and in the other side AMPR will be present there. So the ligation of aligned DNA. Ligation means joining, of align means foreign. So the joining of foreign DNA is carried out in the recognition site which is present there in one of the two antibiotic resistance gene, isn't it? Now example, in the vector PBR322, aligned DNA is ligated in the area of BAM H1 site of tetracycline resistance gene. So in the case of PBR322, we can say that the foreign DNA is joined in the area of BAM H1 site. BAM H1 is the recognition or cloning site of tetracycline resistance gene. So in this area, what is being joined there? A foreign DNA is being joined. Okay, my dear children. Now you can see here an early cloning vector PBR322, where you can see, as I told you, origin of replication site is present here, and next one you can see these are the cloning site, where this is PVU2, PST1 and BAM H1 as well as STAL1. All these are the cloning site, and you can see here, as we discussed about, two antibiotic resistant genes are present there. One is ampicillin resistant gene and the other one is tetracycline resistance gene. So this is the structure of a vector, that is PBR322. I think you would have understood this structure clearly, my dear children. Now in this case you can see here where this is the region into which exogenous DNA can be inserted. In the case of plasmid cloning vector, this is a cloning vector, and here you can see this is the region where the exogenous means the foreign DNA, or we can say the aligned DNA can be inserted, and here this is the area which is called cloning site, or it is the area which is called recognition site. Here I told you about BAM H1, you can see here BAM H1 is present there, isn't it? In the same way, this is antibiotic resistance gene, where you can see two recognition sites are present there. That is, these two recognition sites are for endonuclease, that is restriction endonuclease, and this is the area for the recombination site where an insert will be taking place. Okay, and here transcription initiation will be taking place, and like this you can just see how the process is going on in the PBR322 related to the ligation of aligned DNA. Okay. Now selection of recombinants, as I told you, selectable markers are present there which will be selecting the recombinants or transformants by eliminating the non-recombinants or non-transformants, and how it is taking place we can see. Selection of recombinants can be done by one of the following methods. The first method is inactivation of antibiotics. We know antibiotics, they are TETR and AMPR. So any of the antibiotic will be getting inactivated. Through that process, recombinant can be selected, and the next process is insertional inactivation, or it is also known as color reaction. So first we can go through the inactivation of antibiotics. In that, if a foreign DNA ligate at the BAM-H1 site of tetracycline resistance gene in the vector PBR322, the recombinant plasmid loses the tetracycline resistance due to insertion of allying DNA. Once again I will repeat, if a foreign DNA ligate at the BAM-H1 site of tetracycline resistant gene in the vector PBR322, the recombinant plasmid loses the tetracycline resistance due to insertion of allying DNA. What is happening there? In the BAM-H1 site of tetracycline resistant gene, if a foreign DNA is inserted or it is joined there, what will happen? The recombinant plasmid, it will lose the tetracycline resistance, isn't it? So that is the first step. Number 2, it can be selected from non-recombinant by plating the transformant on ampicillin containing medium. So what is the next step? The recombinant and non-recombinant. The recombinant is having an insert due to which tetracycline resistance it has been, that is recombinant plasmid has loses or it has lost the tetracycline resistance, and non-recombinant it don't have any insertion. So recombinant and non-recombinant both will be plated there on ampicillin containing medium. That is the step number 2. Now in the step number 3, the transformants growing on ampicillin containing medium are then transferred on the medium containing tetracycline. So here not only the transformants but the non-transformants both are growing on ampicillin containing medium. They will be transferred onto the medium containing tetracycline. Now the next step is the recombinants can grow in ampicillin containing medium but not on that containing tetracycline. As we told that recombinants and non-recombinants they are there, and we have to find out which are recombinants and which are non-recombinants. So for finding out recombinants and eliminating the non-recombinants, selectable markers are useful there. So the first method was, it is inactivation of antibiotic. So in the case of recombinants, what will happen? An insert is present there due to which the recombinant plasmid will be losing the tetracycline resistance, and the non-recombinant they don't have any insert of allying DNA. They are the normal cell. Now what will happen? Both of these cells will be placed or they will be plated on ampicillin containing medium, and later on they are transferred on the tetracycline containing medium, and at last what happened? The recombinants will be growing in the ampicillin containing medium but not on that containing tetracycline, because this recombinant it is having an insert where that is insert is due to the, and that insert has taken place at the BAM-H1 site of tetracycline resistant gene. Therefore, it loses the resistivity for tetracycline. In this manner, the recombinant is being identified and the non-recombinant will be eliminated, isn't it? So, you can see here non-recombinants can grow on the medium containing both the antibiotics, and thus recombinants are selected. So in this manner the recombinant cell and the non-recombinant cell is being selected there through this method. Now the second method is related to insertional inactivation, which is also known as color reaction. My dear children, that first method, that is inactivation of antibiotic, it is a tedious method, it is a complex method, it is taking more time. So To make the process more easier, this method is used nowadays for selecting the recombinants and eliminating the non-recombinants, or we can say for selecting the transformants and eliminating the non-transformants. So now we can see this method on the basis of color production in the presence of chromogenic substrate. The recombinants and non-recombinants can be differentiated. So how it is been differentiated? It has been differentiated on the basis of color production in the presence of chromogenic substrate, and we can see how it is being done. A recombinant DNA is inserted within the coding sequence of an enzyme beta galactosidase, which results into inactivation of the enzyme. What is being done there? Recombinant DNA, it is been inserted where? It is been inserted in the coding sequence of an enzyme, and the name of the enzyme is beta galactosidase. Due to that, what has happened? Inactivation of enzyme has taken place. Understood? Due to the insertion of recombinant DNA into the coding sequence of the enzyme became inactivated. And you can see what is insertional inactivation. It is the inactivation of an enzyme due to the inactivation of a gene as a result of the insert of an aligned DNA is called insertional inactivation. What is insertional inactivation? It is the inactivity of the enzyme because of the insertion of an aligned gene which made the gene in that enzyme to be inactivated. Understood, my dear children? And that process is called insertional inactivation. Now, next step, the bacterial colonies having inserted DNA shows no coloration. So, recombinants, it has been identified here. The bacterial colonies without inserted DNA shows blue color, isn't it? So, it is being said here, a recombinant DNA is inserted in the enzyme. So, what will happen? The enzyme will be becoming inactivated, and due to that, the two colonies we will be getting. One is having inserted DNA which will be showing no coloration. The other one which will be showing blue color because there is no inserted DNA in that bacterial cell. So, by doing this process, we will be able to identify recombinants, and it is easy to eliminate non-recombinants, or we can say transformants are identified and non-transformants are eliminated with the help of this method that is called color reaction. Okay, my dear children. So, that is about selectable marker. Now, the fourth is vectors for cloning site. So, it has been said gene transfer may be done by two ways. Number one, vector through gene transfer, that is vectors for cloning gene in plant and animals, isn't it? So, through vectors gene can be transferred into plants as well as into animals, and the method of gene transfer through vectors is called vector through gene transfer. Next one, example. Plasmid vectors of the bacterium Agrobacterium tumefaciens in plants. The plasmid vector present in the Agrobacterium tumefaciens, they are used as vectors for the transferring of gene from one cell to another cell, and in the case of animals, retroviruses. The first one you can see, plasmid vectors of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. As I told you, this Agrobacterium tumefaciens is a bacterium, and it is having two DNA. One is the normal DNA and the second one is the DNA which is having a circular, or we can say a double stranded, or it is a autonomous, or it can be said as extra chromosomal DNA, that is called plasmid. Understood? Now, what is Agrobacterium tumefaciens? Agrobacterium tumefaciens is a soil bacterium which causes crown gall or plant tumor disease in dicot plant. So what is Agrobacterium tumefaciens? It is a soil bacterium, and what it is doing? It is causing a disease in the dicot plant, and the name of the disease is crown gall, or it is also called as plant tumor. Now the plasmid of Agrobacterium is called TI plasmid, where T stands for tumor, I stands for inducing plasmid, isn't it? So in the plasmid of Agrobacterium, what is present there? TI plasmid is present. The plasmid of Agrobacterium is called TI plasmid. As we studied previously, in the case of E. coli, isn't it? Col E1. The name of the plasmid is col E1. In the case of Agrobacterium tumefaciens, the name of the plasmid is TI plasmid, which is known as tumor inducing plasmid. And TI plasmid has an important part called tDNA. The tDNA can transfer normal plant cells into a tumor. So in TI plasmid there is a part called tDNA, which is infectious, which is causing the disease, and it is able to transfer normal plant cell into tumor cells. Now direct these tumor cells to produce the chemicals required by the pathogen. What it is doing? It is directing these tumor cells, that is TI plasmid is directing these tumor cells to produce the chemical required by the pathogen. So TI plasmid is having a part called tDNA, and tDNA is infectious. So what is happening? Tumor cells are present there in this plasmid, and this tumor cells will be producing chemicals required by the pathogens. Now the TI plasmid is modified into a cloning vector. So TI plasmids can be used as vectors for the transfer of gene of interest from one cell to another cell. For that they have to be modified. It is able to use the mechanism of to deliver genes of interest into plants. That is, the mechanism present in TI plasmid can be used there to deliver genes of interest, that is foreign gene or aligned gene, into the plants. So that is about TI plasmid, my dear children. Here this figure is not clear. This is a figure of TI plasmid. It is similar to the PBR 322, or we can say similar to PUC 18, which I have shown you before in this class itself. Okay, so you just can go through that one, that part. Now the second one is retrovirus. Retroviruses in animals can transform normal cells into cancerous cells. So what are retroviruses? They are able to transform normal cells into cancerous cells, and these viruses also can be disarmed so as to use as vectors to deliver desirable genes into animals. That is, in the case of Agrobacterium tumefaciens, TI plasmids can be modified so that they can be used there for the transferring of gene of interest from one cell to another cell. In the same way, retroviruses, they are also been made, that is, they can be also disarmed, isn't it? They are made non-infectious and they are used there to transfer gene of interest from one bacterial cell to another bacterial cell. Now the next one is vectorless gene transfer. So the first one was vector through gene transfer, where we have seen two types. Number one was related to the plasmid vectors of Agrobacterium, isn't it? And number two, we have just studied about the retroviruses. Now the second one is vectorless gene transfer, and here you can see the process of transfer of gene directly into host cell. Here what is happening? There is no need of any vector, But what is happening there? The genes which are needed there, the desirable genes which are needed there, or gene of interest which is there, that can be directly inserted into the cells. That is called, or that process is called vectorless gene transfer. And the important methods are microinjection, gene gun or biolistic gun, disarmed pathogen vector, etc. So what are the important methods related to vectorless gene transfer? They are microinjection. So through microinjection, the gene can be transferred. Same way, gene gun is used there, or it is also called biolistic gun, through which the gene of interest is being transferred, as well as disarmed pathogen vector, just now which we have seen there. So all these are vectorless gene transfer, through which the gene of interest can be transferred from one cell to another cell. So first one we can see microinjection. Through this process, foreign DNA is introduced into the nucleus of an animal cell using micropipette. Micropipette are used there for introducing the alien DNA or foreign DNA into the nucleus of an animal cell. Understood, my dear children? That is about microinjection. Number 2 is gene gun, or it is also known as biolistic gun. And here what is happening? Through this process, microparticles of gold or tungsten is coated there. That is, the gene of interest will be present there, and in that gene of interest, that gene will be having a coating of gold or tungsten, and that gene will be inserted into the plant cell with high velocity. In this manner, with the help of gene gun, the gene of interest is being transferred into the host cell. The third one is disarmed pathogen vector. Here, the disarmed pathogen with recombinant DNA vector is allowed to transfer the alien gene into host cell. Just now we have seen what is happening there. The pathogens which are infectious, they will be made non-infectious first, and then with the recombinant DNA, these vectors, they will be allowed to transfer the alien gene into the host cell. So these are the methods through which the gene of interest can be transferred from one cell to the another cell. Now the next part is competent host. That means the cell which is capable of taking up alien DNA is called competent host. If a bacterial cell is ready to take up the foreign DNA, surely we can say that that bacterial cell is competent. What is competency? It is the ability to take up genes and plasmid from outside. The ability of the bacterial cell to take up the genes as well as the plasmid from outside. If that ability is present there in the bacterial cell, we can say that bacterial cell is competent. Okay. Now, as we know that DNA is a hydrophilic molecule and it cannot pass through lipoprotein cell membrane. DNA, they are hydrophilic. Hydrophilic means they are water loving molecules, and number 2, they cannot pass through the lipoprotein. That means the cell membrane which is having lipid and protein, or the cell membrane which is made up of lipid and protein. In those cell membrane, the DNA molecule cannot pass. So for that, what is to be done? The bacterial cell is made competent to take up DNA. Understood? So for that, you can see the steps for making the bacterial cell competent. The DNA, they are hydrophilic in nature and they cannot pass through the cell membrane which are made up of lipoprotein, and in the bacterial cell, the cell membrane is made up of lipoprotein. So what has to be done? For that, the bacterial cell should be made competent so that the DNA can pass through its cell membrane into it. Isn't it? For that, the first step you can see, the bacterial cell is treated with divalent cation like calcium, so that to increase the pore size in cell wall. in the bacterial cell to increase the pore size in the cell wall, that cell is treated with divalent cation like calcium. And number 2, the cells are incubated with recombinant DNA on ice. Then after this process, these bacterial cells, they will be placed on the ice with recombinant DNA, or we can say these cells are incubated with recombinant DNA on ice. Then next one, again the third step, the bacterial cell is provided heat shock at 42 degree centigrade. After placing the cell on ice, later on what is happening there? The cell is provided with heat shock, and again what is being done there? The cell is placed on the ice. So this complete process is called heat shock treatment. Now after this process, what happened? The bacterial cell is ready to take up the recombinant DNA. My dear children, in this manner the bacterial cell will become competent and it will be able to take up the recombinant DNA into it. I think you would have understood what I have taken today in this virtual class, and you will be able to go through very nicely. And my dear children, if you are having any doubt related to today's topic or today's portion, my dear children, please call me and clarify your doubts. Last but not the least, always be on the track, be positive, and always wear a smile on your face. So by this I will be ending today's virtual class, and we will be meeting in the next class. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy.